Hello, and welcome to revision classes on television. Today, we will be having a session in English language. Our guide is Andrew Osunde, and our focus today is Summary Exercise 2014 SSC.
Summary is one of the vital parts of your English SSC question. And as candidates that are looking towards this examination, there is need for you to know the following hints. We have been talking about the hints since this program started, and it will not be out of place for us to run through it again. The rationale behind this is to enable you to highlight the topic sentence, and having highlighted the topic sentence, you will be able to identify the main idea. It is that main idea that the question requires you to put into sentence form. For this point, you have to write your answers in sentence forms and not in phrases. Summary in WASE has been made a little bit easier for you because you are not expected to summarize the full passage in paragraphs. No, you are expected to do it in sentence form. And before you are able to do that, you should know what the sentence is and the traditional components of the sentence. You agree with me that the sentence comprises of what we call the subject traditionally, plus the verb. This is a simple sentence. Some other scholars would define the sentence as subject plus the predicate. With this, you have gotten your sentence. The boy looks. Tola laughs. They are all simple sentences. And that is what your answer is required to be. Your answers are required to be in sentence form and not in phrases. In summary writing, you are not expected to lift directly from the sentence. Use your own words. You are not supposed to write directly or lift directly from the passage. Use your own words, but in a bid to do this, do not allow your diction to change the meaning, the overall meaning of the passage. It is very, very important, or else you'll be writing out of point. We have 2014 passage before us. This passage was chosen because of the relevance to our present dispensation. The passage is talking about the difference between the handset telephone and the mobile phone. Let's have a jolly good reading of the passage. Have you ever considered the vast differences between the conventional desktop telephone and the modern handset telephone? The desktop telephone has one distinct function, that of making and receiving calls. Apart from that, perhaps the other use is aesthetic, adding some beauty to the furniture pieces in the room. The conventional telephone set has a status symbol, as only the rich and highly privileged could afford it. To obtain it, one had to fill many forms and have 3 well-known citizens to attest to one's sterling qualities as a highly responsible member of the society. Then, after paying several fees, one had to wait for several months before the telecommunication department officials would come to install the wires in order to get one set connected to the national grid. After that, the applicant might count himself among the privileged ones in the community, but he must not have a sigh of relief yet. His problem may just be beginning. The inclement weather may remind him that his use of the facility is at his mercy. A rainstorm or even a strong wind can destroy some of the wire-bearing poles, thus cutting him off from other telephone users. Besides, a vehicular accident may knock down a pole or several of them. It is not even uncommon for termites to render wooden poles useless. Finally, there are the problem of the communication department officials, who are noted for bringing bill late and cutting off wires for failure to pay up promptly. Most often, the bill bears little resemblance to actual consumption. Thus, the telephone is not always there at one's service. Like the conventional desktop telephone set, the handset has the primary function of making and receiving calls. Beyond that, there are vast differences between them. To begin with, the small handset is not much of a status symbol now. It is very easy to carry about, and it can be used everywhere by all and sundry. The telephone service providers have flooded the market with lines at very low prices, such that most users can boast of 2 or more lines. Gone are the days when one had to apply for a set and wait for months. Today, all that it takes to purchase the handset, which could be very cheap or very costly, depending on one's preference and purse. Once it is purchased, each user could have access to dozens of functions. Apart from making and receiving calls, one could send messages and receive responses within minutes. The set could be used to take pictures, which could be as clear as any taken with a professional camera. One could also connect to the internet to read newspapers and send mails. Besides, the set could be used to store songs. It could be used as a radio receiver. One could use the handset to program schedules of activities. The reliable timepiece on it could be used as a watch. Young ones play games on it and store pictures of loved ones on them. However, with all these advantages, the handset has one obvious shortcoming. It can easily be lost or stolen. This is where the conventional desktop telephone is not vulnerable. Very interesting passage, talking about the difference between the handset telephone and the desktop telephone. The passage saw the desktop telephone as something that has to do with status in the society. The desktop telephone, as it were, has just one function, as against the handset telephone that has varieties of function when purchased. The question is still direct. Like we said, most of summary questions, in fact, not just most, all the summary questions are what we refer to as recall questions. Recall in the sense that it gives the candidates or the reader the ability to recall back the facts, the issues that were raised in the passage. And again, they are very, very direct. And so that is why, if we're talking summary, we're talking something that is concise, we're talking about something that is precise. In that regard, WASE or NECO has instructed or is requiring of you to put this just in a simple, straight to the point expression in a sentence form. We have always emphasized on this program that summary, the candidate can approach it in two ways, either the preamble method or the sentence independent sentence method. The candidate is at liberty to use any of the approaches. But if you have chosen to use the preamble method, there are intricacies. And because of these intricacies and technicalities, we usually advise our students to stick to the holistic method. The reason is not far-fetched, because preamble method is like you having an umbrella to cover the other aspects that you have given. And now when you make mistake in the preamble, it affects every other correct answer you've given. But when you choose to go with holistic, they are independent, like we said. This mistake that is made on one will never affect the other. The questions in 3 sentences, one for each, summarize the problems associated with owning the desktop telephone. In 3 simple sentences, you have to summarize. Remember, don't copy from the passage blindly. In as much as you don't want to copy or live directly from the passage, let your diction not change the whole meaning or the idea the writer is trying to pass across. On this note, we want to pause and look at what the question is requiring of us. It is very important that you relay or recall. Like we said, summary questions are recall questions. It is compulsory that you use the main words that the question has used in its structure, in its construction. For instance, the question before us is saying, in 3 sentences, one for each, summarize the problems associated with owning a desktop telephone. In your attempt to answer this, you must not shy away from the phrase desktop telephone. You must recall this phrase or these words in your answer. The second question. In 3 sentences, one for each, summarize the advantages the handset telephone has over the desktop telephone. Handset telephone is another necessity. That is what we're saying. In a bid to shy away from not copying directly from the passage, don't use a diction that will change the meaning of the passage. For instance, handset telephone, mobile phone can go. But in the bid of doing that, don't change the idea. The meaning, the idea must remain. It must not be missing. So for the passage before us, we want to employ the use of preamble method. Level A. Remember the question in 3 sentences, one for each. Summarize the problems associated with owning the desktop telephone. And since I'm using the preamble, we'll come this way. This is so simple. This is our preamble. The problem associated with owning the desktop telephone is, in our last class, we're looking at the use of the plural subject and the plural verb. That before now, it is acceptable in summary, but now it is something that will become a blemish when you go that line. So you have to look at this very carefully. The reason being that the preamble and the supposed phrase, when put together, must align as one sentence. The problem associated with owning the desktop telephone is the cumbersome process of obtaining its simple sentence. 2. Again, this is another sentence. The problem associated with owning the desktop telephone is the unfavorable / unexpected incident that affects it. Sentence number 3. If you were following, these were the problem that were highlighted when we're going through the passage. And for level B, Number 3, easily accessible. And when we align this with our preamble, we'll see that we have gotten a full sentence. Please be careful when you want to use the preamble method. Make sure your phrases aligns with the preamble to get a full sentence. On this note, we have come to the end of this class.
You can subscribe to NTA series on YouTube to watch or download past episodes of revision classes on television. That's the much we can take on the program today. Do join us next time for another educating session.